Welcome again, and this time to the opening panel, the keynote panel. As you know, the title of both the event and this panel is Artificial Intelligence and Financial Information, the Race is On. We're going to discuss how AI is reshaping vendor products, user processes, and value for clients. At last year's opening panel, we also talked about AI, as you may remember. It had only been a few months since ChatGPT had been launched, and the developments in AI since then have gone at neck-break speed, with generative AI being often most literally the most visible. The level of technical and visual perfection is now such that it's hard to know what is real and what is not. In addition, there has been a true deluge of publications, applications, and predictions, and growing concerns about the governance of AI and its creators. Should it be open or closed? What about intellectual property? Will it have a mind of its own? Today we're going to see where we stand with all of this, 1 year on. And with me here are some senior business leaders from our world of financial information services, and they are going to introduce themselves. And I will start with Dimitris, whose introduction, of course, can be short and brief and sweet.
All I have to say is the picture here was AI created, as you can tell.
Exactly.
I typed into GPT, make me younger by 20 years. There you go.
Yeah, Stephanie Rolf. I'm group head of the DZ Bank Central Market Data Management team. And in regards to AI, there are multiple topics that are coming up, arising, be it on the business side, that there is a need to understand how AI is working and how it can support basically in the day-to-day business, for example, to compromise a vast amount of data. Secondly, there are obviously talks with the providers on how to use the data, the market data within the AI context. And thirdly, we ourselves are also looking into opportunities to integrate AI in our day-to-day market data management processes. That's it for now. Yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie. Bernard?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name is Bernard Schut. I'm working at BIC. BIC is a provider of market data management solutions. And yeah, well, in my daily work, we work with AI all the time, I would say. So first of all, it's my role together with the team, which is a combination of business people, but also technical people, to think about business cases, of course. Secondly, I really like to reduce my manual work on a daily basis. And what I would really like to say before we head on with this discussion is that everybody should do prompting themselves instead of talking about it. I think it's really valuable to just open this account of ChatGPT, try it out. And in the past, I used it as some kind of a Google engine. But then I found out that there's a website called learnprompting.org. And I got to know how it's working and what you can really do with it to generate new content, to generate ideas, to automate certain processes and features in our product. And yeah, I could say AI really changed my life since 2 years.
Thank you. Stefan?
I'm Stefan Weichert, one of the partners at Force. Force is an internationally operating consulting company focusing on trading, risk management, and regulatory compliance in financial markets and energy markets. And our AI footprint includes, of course, projects together with our clients, provision of our cloud platform Grid for joint ventures in AI, and collaborations with universities.
Thank you. Christian?
Hi. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining for our little podium discussion. My name is Christian Baha. I'm the founder of Baha, the information company. We are a data vendor around since 31 years from Austria, Vienna. We were founded. We are a high-tech company, and we have data centers in New York, London, Frankfurt, and Vienna. We renamed us. Many people know us from our original name when we were founded in 92, Teletrader, but we renamed into my name because my people said, please, can we use your name? And I said, you have to convince me. And how they convinced me, they brought one bigger bank as a client where we did the whole wealth management, the terminal business. And I said, okay, one more. Then they brought one more in, a nice other Swiss bank. And so then I gave them the name in 21 because I also thought it's a very good statement. And there's only 2 other data vendors in the world that were named after the founder, and that is Reuters. Unfortunately, it was renamed. And this was in 1871. The pigeons were flying over the Suez Channel with the quotes from the equity markets in London, and they were faster than the ship transporting the information. So, and then Bloomberg in 1981, also some time ago, and yes, and now it's Baha. We did a lot of development in AI over the years because I have also a quantitative hedge fund where we are working deeply with AI, and it was called machine learning before, but now you have much more data and data centers. I think the revolution will be extreme for us human beings, but also for workforce. And I think nothing will be the same as it used to be for the last centuries. Yep. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I don't know.
We'll talk about that a bit more, hopefully. So the way we're going to do this, we have about 25 minutes. There will be a possibility for questions, but leave them a bit towards the end. And we're not going to fiddle with Slido, but we'll do stand-up questions just to save time for the discussion itself. So there are several ways that we can approach this topic, right, of AI and financial information services. The useful way, or one of the useful ways, is to talk about use cases, and Dimitri actually did that already. So here's my first question: how far along are organizations, and that's end-user firms, as well as vendors, in identifying use cases and implementation solutions, and what would appear to be the general approaches that work? Stefan.
Thanks. I think the answer clearly depends on the type and also size of the company. If you look at bigger companies, which are end users, they have not this organizational flexibility to do a lot of change immediately, but they clearly found that AI is going to change something. So they started to create extra organizational units. I would maybe call them laboratories, where a lot of research was done without any connection maybe to a real use case. I remember one client, they talked about, oh, we found something. We created some organizational structure out of news using AI. And I said, okay, that's great. And how are you going to use it? Oh, we are not going to use it. So, but this has changed a lot, I think. Yeah? So we are some years further, and the collaboration between these laboratories and the business experts is growing and is starting to pay off. And I think that's a very, very good trend. On the other hand side, we have companies for which the use of AI is the reason for founding the company. So I don't need to talk about that. These companies are much more flexible, much more agile, much more focused on their use case. So they take a lot of speed. And maybe we have older software vendors in between. A lot of them are here today, which are kind of in the middle, I would say. And before the event, we did some research, searching through the websites of the vendors. And I think everyone is claiming to have something already implemented. Going over this, I'm not buying everything. So I think nobody dares to say I'm not in AI. Everybody is. But some of them, I think, have developed really, really cool solutions. Maybe also niche-based, but that's a good trend. And I think that's my perception, at least, of the topic.
Stephanie, you're the only representative of an end-user firm, which makes you a very important person on this panel. right? So we believe you much more than anybody else. So you already talked a little bit in your introduction about how DZ Bank is sort of approaching the topic of AI. You and market data management have been, I think, identified or even chosen to be one of the first pioneers there. Can you talk a little bit about that, and also to the topic of how the implementation is going?
Sure. Generally, DZ Bank started, I think it was last year, as one of the first banks, I think it is, to implement ChatGPT. It's called DZ Chat. It's isolated. So as a firm, in general, we are approaching the topic of artificial intelligence. We've also set up a project looking at what are the questions around data management which need to be answered, around infrastructure, how want we set up the overall infrastructure, then the governance, obviously, and the operational model behind it. These are questions I think every company is currently facing, that they are building up operating models on how AI will and can be integrated in the companies. And within this project, there was an opportunity that use cases could be handed in. I think it were around 160, 70, something like this, within DZ Bank. And luckily, we were 1 out of 5 to be chosen, because we, as a market data management team, obviously, we want to make our processes more efficient. And Hazel is always to look for contracts and the terms and conditions that go with the respective data licenses. And so we will start in a couple of weeks as a kind of, how do you call it, co-pilot, not co-pilot, as a first use case to basically use contracts, use notifications, and then create prompts, standardized prompts that we, as a market data management team, then can directly get the relevant information out of the contract, as well as notifications. And the word I was searching was prototypes, so I got it. So we are in an early stage, obviously, but that's okay, because we all, I think, need to learn. We, as an end user, need to learn, but also, obviously, the IT and the governance overall needs to get to know AI and the complexity, obviously, it also brings, and the security that needs to be considered, especially as a bank, because it's quite confidential data we are handling with.
Yeah. Bernard, you already also said in your introduction that BIC is working with AI as well, as Stefan says. Everyone, of course, is working with that. In your case, it's more about process automation, process improvement, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so what we do with BIC, we aggregate a lot of data from different data vendors, around 100 data vendors, I think. So for doing so, all these data vendors are having their own data models, their own data formats, naming conventions, etc. So we thought, okay, there should be a use case to automate it, because at this moment we need data analysts to take a look at the data, to put it in a database somewhere. At end of last year, together with a team, we went to Italy, and we spent a week over there to think about this problem. And now we found a way to automate feed handling. So if there's a new data feed available from Baha, maybe, because we don't have Baha yet, then it would be a matter of using this AI bot to take in the data automatically, to give the right place in the database, in the data model, to process it through to the API automatically. So I think that's a really cool use case. Secondly, we also need to take care of documentation of the data model. It's also a big task for data analysts, and now it's with a single mouse click that we can generate this documentation. And well, the final thing, as BIC, we are also developing our own software. And for developing software, first you need to think about design, for instance. So we also found a way that, okay, let's make a sketch of a certain new feature in a product, upload it in the AI, and then automatically a design is generated, automatically a functional design is generated, how it should be developed. Automatically we are getting back developer stories in Jira and a project management tooling. We are getting back a test plan automated. So basically we are not that far away of automating the whole development flow. And I think that's amazing, actually, because it brings you a lot of time to market. And in the end, also a shorter time to market for your customers. And in the end, I would say lower prices.
Now, I'm sure that more vendors will say and have the story that you do yourself, and also Dimitri talked about it. As an end user firm, I might want to know, okay, so you're going to run your processes more efficiently, which hopefully or presumably leads to a reduction in cost. I mean, I know the answer, of course, but is any of this going to be passed on to clients? The improvements in the production of data and the production of services?
Yeah, for us, it's basically about improving the efficiency of your process and the product itself. And we are seeing more and more data vendors now who are saying in their contracts, okay, you cannot use our data in the large language model, which makes sense, I think. But yeah, that basically also means that we need to focus on workflow optimization at this moment.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about the data itself. It was also alluded to by Dimitri. Of course, data lends itself. I mean, market data lends itself very well for, the use in applications like ChatGPT, Copilot. They're querying data sets. That is increasingly happening. But as you say, it would appear that many vendors are actually saying you cannot use my data in, chat programs. How will that work, and how will that, eventually, happen if the vendors are saying you cannot actually use? It's basically what goes into the database or the data world that is part of the question. The queries that you apply to the data. Is that going to be a hindrance, or is that just fact of life, and you have to sort of contain the data model in that sense?
Well, I think quite pragmatically, no vendor would say no to a revenue stream. And I would imagine the predominant majority of vendors who are saying today, don't use my data, is because they have not repapered the contracts for data sharing that accommodate for this new use case. Today, LSEG aggregates over 3,000 partner and vendor data. And you can imagine some of these contracts were written a decade ago, right? Especially with the larger providers. So conceivably, if there was a mechanism to ensure the traceability, provenance, so what we call data passport, for the data that goes into these new use cases so that our partners could feel like they're being compensated appropriately, conceivably you can see a story where a partner or a provider of data says, well, for $1 or for €1, you can use it in these 5 use cases, and for €20, you can also use it in LLM, right? So I think fundamentally the economics of it have not really taken hold, but they will. So I certainly am a glass half full when it comes to that, and I think the economics will naturally take care of themselves as long as the data sharing agreements and the mechanism for watermarking the data, making sure that my IP is not infringed on, is in place. And that's a big challenge in and of itself. It's also a big challenge not only for contractual and data sharing rights and IP protection, but it is also a challenge for traceability and auditability purposes. Yesterday, my colleague and I had a wonderful meeting with one of our key clients here in Munich, and we were sort of musing on at what point your data stops being your data. And as you think about the value chain of the data as it trickles through LLM, after it's been trained, after it's been fine-tuned, after somebody extracted that knowledge and added something on top of that, at what point can you stop calling the original data somebody else's data and start calling what you have your proprietary data? So that's the challenge that the industry, I think, is certainly grappling with today. It's probably not a surprise to anyone that this is one of the key focus areas for regulators across the two sides of the pond as well. And we've also seen quite a lot of innovation in this space. In the media space, companies like Adobe are forced to innovate and build into the design of their AI, how do you actually watermark imagery, right? To try and avoid deep fakes and a lot of the negative use cases that we hear about in the press. Well, think about the same thing in the context of data. Could you actually watermark data to make sure that somebody is not misusing it? Somebody is not stealing your data. Somebody is not putting data that is fake to create a plausible output, which is actually not trustworthy. So a lot of questions around this, but I do think we're in the early stages of addressing those.
Yeah. And who do you see leading that effort? Is that regulators, or is that vendors, or is it client organizations? Who sometimes seems as these things that people are waiting what's going to happen, but it goes so quickly with AI that you don't want to be caught by surprise by any of these developments, I suppose.
Well, I'm an American sitting at a Munich conference, so I have to be quite careful in what I say because it depends on who you ask, on which side of the pond. I think it's a combination of sort of the free market forces and innovation that has to go into any new technology. If you think about blockchain, if you think about digital payments, if you think about e-commerce, if you think about social commerce, those innovations were not necessarily spearheaded by regulators, right? But they also easily got out of whack without any type of regulatory oversight. So I think the two have to go side by side. Yeah. My personal view is regulators would follow rather than lead. I think the companies that are represented here are the ones who need to lead with the innovation to solve for these use cases. And it all comes back to the earlier conversation that we just had in response to your first question, and that is, what are the use cases? What are we solving for? If it's AI for the sake of AI, that will certainly die out pretty quickly. If it's AI to solve inefficiencies or create synthetic data where natural data does not exist, or improve productivity, like as long as we know what we're solving for, AI is just a tool that we can harness. Yeah.
Christian, you must also be buying a lot of data. It's of course part of what Baha does. What is your early experience there in terms of any restrictions that vendors are putting on you in terms of using data, if you are using for AI purposes at all?
Yeah, it's very expensive to buy the data, you're right, especially for data vendors. And the exchanges are not getting cheaper, but more in the other direction, unfortunately. This is really tough. I think everybody who is restricting the data analytics and AI will lose in the long run market share and even completely the existence of these companies, because you will find anything anywhere and you even don't know where it's coming from at the end in the web. And all these big tech in the AI industry, they are using basically everything, and there is no timestamp or where it's coming from. And you see it's coming with such a power that it's a really very strong market development, and you will not be able, unfortunately, to regulate it. Yeah? There will be lots of positive outcomes, as we see already with Baha inside. We have we call it not Alexa, we call it Chrissy. Also my people had the idea. And it's talking to you, it answers you all questions in any language actually. Some languages it couldn't, but most of the common languages. And it's using all our data we have. And the results are really very impressive, from the data people in the banks who can improve basically in saving costs with their vendors, but also for improve the traders and the wealth managers in the banks to optimize their portfolio very quickly, but in a way that is really smart, and where I even can't believe it, being in the quantitative hedge fund space for 28 years now. It's designing portfolios, you would tell, give me the best high share, and we can show it on our booth or also in the presentation at 2:20 p.m. in the afternoon. We will show a few things. It's still the prototype, but I'm stunned what we are doing with it, and I think you will not be able to close the data, because everybody else has it already, and it's the question of who has the best data and who has the best AI these guys are going to win the race, I think.
Yeah. I guess in a number of ways, the elephant in the room here, I think we discussed this last year as well, is what will it do to people's jobs, right? You know, last night at the evening reception, I can't remember, I apologize to the person who I discussed it with, but they said to me, you know, in a short while, we won't be needing fund managers anymore because, you know, if you have the right AI tools, you know, when it comes to managing portfolios and sort of optimizing your holdings, it need not be no longer a human task, right? That's maybe just one example. Maybe another example is risk management. You know, when it comes about what is portfolio risk management or more the bank risk, so to speak, if you run the right applications and you have the right information, who needs? You need people to supervise. What do you guys think? Is that going to happen, or was it you, Stefan, that I discussed?
No, but I would like to comment on that. When you talk about risk management, it's, I mean, of course, AI tools will help or do already help in identifying things, but especially in risk management, you still have to know what's going on. Yeah? That's your job, basically. So we still need people having the right business know-how, which are kind of supported or will be supported by these tools. That's my strong belief. So definitely.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I think before it comes to that, there are a couple of questions and important questions to be answered. That is around data quality, data comprehensiveness, data readiness, so to say, and then currently the language models are black box, so this beast needs to be handled. So there are many ways, I think, before or hurdles or understanding to generate before we actually can say we can pass our job to automated whatsoever. I think it's I don't know if it even will come to this point, even because there are so many, as I said, quality issues to be considered, be it on the data or on the model side itself.
Yeah. I did a little unscientific poll on LinkedIn. I don't know if I can move forward my slides. It wasn't this one. And don't answer to this, but you know, since we have many market data managers in the audience, I actually wanted to know, you know, in your day-to-day job, you refer to this as well, Dimitri, what is actually sort of the most helpful situation in which you can use AI? And again, it wasn't scientific or statistically very relevant, the response, but the first option got the most votes, right? You know, understanding and interpreting the terms and conditions of contracts. You know, for many market data managers, it seems to be a challenge, and you mentioned this as well, you know, to understand from a contract, you know, what is actually that I'm allowed to do? Which use cases in my bank am I allowed to have this data being used? Can you think of AI being of help there? You know, that all the legal paperwork produced by, you know, your MSCIs, your FTSEs, you name them, that AI can help in making that a more efficient process? Anybody?
Well, I think it's a temporary solution. And the answer is absolutely yes. My team is grappling right now with the influx of requests. How is my data being used? Now, I think of this as a very short-term use case in the grand scheme of things, because once that is automated and clarified, right, it becomes easier. I was surprised to see, not to see on this list, a use case that I think a little bit further into the future, but not too much further, and that is synthetic data generation. Now, I'll give you an example. Say you're a portfolio manager, and you're looking across your portfolio to see, I don't know, a sustainability overlay or carbon intensity of your portfolio overlay, just as an example. And as we know, ESG data is scarce, not necessarily reliable all the time. It depends on your portfolio and coverage, right, and geography. So the first pass of that would be by using the data out of the box, whatever you bought from someone. Let's say you bought it from MSCI. Mm-hmm. Then you identify maybe that 60% of your companies in your portfolio don't have any information because they happen to be in locations that MSCI does not cover.
Right.
The next logical step would be to engage the AI algorithm to say, here's the criteria, generate synthetic data based on all the information that you have at hand, based on the company's location, history, and come up with some proxy on that, right? So now amplify that use case to any gap in any data that you may have, financial, non-financial, right? That to me, I think, is a very, very powerful opportunity for, from the data standpoint to see AI as a true helper. And I was really eager to join in the previous question to your question on whether the jobs will be lost. Probably not a very popular opinion, but I actually think unequivocally yes. There will be new jobs created, as is the case. But when you think of, I don't know, online banking, right? For how long did bank tellers keep telling us that you absolutely need a human being to take good care of your checks that you deposit, right? Until you don't need them anymore, or don't need as many of them. So I think it will change, but we hope that new jobs will be created around coding, data engineering, data scientists, and really harnessing this for much greater value add, as is the case with any innovation.
Excellent. Okay, I think we have time for one question, so it better be a very good, smart, and insightful question. Now, who has the guts to stand up? So seriously, if you have a question, let us know. Okay. Is anybody more concerned now or less concerned? Yeah, I should ask it in one way or the other. More concerned? Hands up. Nobody's concerned. Everyone will hold on to their job. On that note, we have to wrap it up because the next sessions start at 10 o'clock. I want to thank my panelists, Dimitri, Stephanie, Bernard, Stefan, and Christian for their participation, and maybe some of you back next year. Thank you all.
Ja, für mich.